Tutorials are not only key in teaching your player how to interact with your game, but also one of those simple things that are the hardest to nail down. As helpful as they might be, tutorials can also cause a lot of frustration. They can leave the player confused without knowing what to do. So I made this video to help you find what makes a good tutorial, and how to avoid the common pitfalls game developers face. Every time we start a game as players, we're greeted with messages, conversations, or screen prompts that tell us how to interact with the game. They teach you how to move, how to attack, or even how to use a specific item. However, some games take this to the extreme and tell the player everything there is to the game. The ability to experiment is taken away, which is a major source of frustration, and usually ends up in them stopping the game altogether. One example of this is Zelda Skyward Sword. The moment you start playing, you get really excited about exploring the world, uncovering secrets, and solving puzzles. But then something happens. We're introduced to Fi, which in my opinion is one of the most annoying characters in any game I have ever played. She literally tells you how to do everything, and that leaves the player without any kind of choice or experimentation. It's like a constant spoiler, chasing you throughout the world you can get rid of. To make things even worse, this makes the player feel dumb, and we can probably all agree that is the opposite of how you want the player to feel when playing your game. Another problem with this game is that for the first couple of hours, the designers constrain you to a small town where you're supposed to learn every single mechanic in the game. The problem is that there isn't anything here that can keep the players engaged. It is full of boring tasks that lack excitement and that can make players stop playing your game quickly. Now, the way I prefer tutorials in games is when I actually figure out what to do in the game by experimenting with the controls and by learning from my mistakes. One great example of this is the original Super Mario Bros. Here, you don't get any prompt to move right or anything else. The game just drops you at the beginning of the level and lets you go from there. However, they very softly align Mario a little bit to the left, so you hint at the player that you need to move right. Now the next thing is amazing. As we walk to the right, we see mushroom-shaped Goombas coming at Mario. The first time you see them, you are probably going to die by walking right into them. But the penalty is so low since you started the game that it doesn't matter. The next time you try, you're going to notice that you can jump, and you will probably evade or kill the Goombas. Just after that, there are blocks that you can hit with your head. Some are red and look solid, and others are bright and shiny with a question mark, so the player will want to hit them to see what happens. When this happens, a mushroom is going to appear. Now this mushroom has the same shape of the Goomba, however, the blocks here don't allow the player to jump very high, so he will most likely hit the mushroom and they will notice that it makes them bigger. This is a great way to teach players, because you are doing it in a way that incorporates the player actually playing the game and making decisions, as opposed to doing mundane tasks or hearing an NPC talk about it. It keeps the player engaged, it requires the player to think, and most importantly, it makes the player feel smart when they figure something out. Another great example is Shovel Knight. The first thing you see in the first level is the character and a pile of dirt. The key here is that your character has a huge shovel. This tells the player that they probably need to do something to the pile of dirt. When the player approaches it and starts digging, he uncovers jewels. Now we know that when we dig in piles of dirt, we can get jewels. The next thing you see is an enemy coming at you. Again, if it hurts you, it's no big deal, because you just started the game. At this point, you know that if you can use your shovel with the dirt, you are most likely going to be able to use it here to fight the enemy. After that, we kill another couple of enemies and are introduced to big blocks of sand. As opposed to the piles of dirt, when we hit the blocks of sand using the shovel, they are destroyed. This is very important in the coming section. What happens next is really cool. We see two blocks in our way. The issue is that these blocks are below the player, and up until this point, there have only been blocks to the side of the player. We know for a fact we can hit blocks with our shovel and they disappear, so what are players more likely to do here? I think they will try to use the shovel while aiming down. That will make the Shovel Knight pound the ground with his shovel, thus removing the blocks in the way. This is a great way of teaching the player the basic mechanics of the game without a single word. Only making the player actually engage with the game by playing it is a beautiful thing to see. Players aren't dumb, they like figuring things out themselves. Again, this makes them feel accomplished for working out the puzzle and makes for a way better, more fulfilling experience than Fi telling you what to do all the time. The key takeaway here is to make sure that whenever you introduce a mechanic in your game, always try to do it in a way that feels engaging for the player and doesn't feel like a chore. Simplicity is usually the best way to go. You want to give the player a space for experimentation with what you're trying to teach so they get comfortable with it. For example, if the player is learning how to bounce off of things, give them a safe space to do so and then challenge them. Whatever you do, don't give the full answer to the player. Trust me, there is nothing more rewarding than piecing it together yourself. Needless to say, games have evolved a lot over time since Super Mario Bros. Obviously, they are more complicated in every sense of the word. However, I still think that we as designers can study how these games made tutorials and apply them to our games today. The principle doesn't change just because graphics are cooler and mechanics are flashier. Focus on creating interesting and engaging ways to teach how to play a game to somebody that has never played it before. I have a video on playtesting that might come in handy, so I'll link it here for you. The worst mistake is having them not understand the game, get frustrated, and ultimately stop playing, regardless of how great your game might be. So take it into consideration and create fun and amazing tutorials for your game. And that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. What other games do you think have great tutorials? Please let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you like this video, please subscribe and share it with your friends. See you next time!